Ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to the show today. Today we are going to be talking about politics and elections. Yes, so today we are going to get face-to-face with Raj Guruswamy, a former corporate affairs boss with coal mine giant Adani, as we all know. And Raj Guruswamy is running for Senate on Pauline Hanson's ticket. So that's interesting as well. Welcome to the show, Raj.
Thanks, Mr. Umesh, for having me in your show. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so Raj, cutting straight to the chase, from corporate world to politics, what is the reasoning behind this move?
Okay, like you said, I've worked for many companies in Australia. Let me give a 30-second of my background. Came into the country in 92, an Australian citizen since 95. And I've worked with big companies like Linfox, Toll, QR National, which is Horizon now, and then Adani. So, but because of my profile, many people know me as an ex or an Adani executive. So the reason for getting into politics is I've seen a lot of issues that a company faces when they are setting up, either when I took Linfox to India or when QR National or Horizon now, when we're trying to do business, the issues that were there, the red tape that was there in the Australian systems. And with Adani, many of you know the difficulties that Adani faced. So I was front and center for some issues. So I thought if there is an opportunity to get into Australian politics, and if I can change something to make doing business easy, that would be a good way of entering or shifting from corporate to political side. That was the main reason. And of course, Pauline Hanson tapped me on my shoulder and asked me whether I would be interested in running as number 2 to the Senate. So one and fell together. So that's where I am.
Thank you very much for that. And so, looking at that, you've come from the corporate world and entering politics. So, and the reasoning behind that, which you gave, is quite possible. But I mean, looking at it, you could have gone with one of the major parties, or even tried independently. And you have just mentioned, that Pauline Hanson approached you. So, of course, we know. And just for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, many people have branded One Nation as a racist or anti-immigration party. So what do you have to say about that?
I'm sure people are seeing me or hearing my voice. And if Pauline Hanson has to give me ticket number 2 in the Senate after her, I don't think why I would stand there and justify anyone's question of being saying that Pauline is a racist. You all know that I'm from India, and for her to say that somebody from an Indian origin, Aussie Indian, should be her number 2, I don't think I can put her as a racist. And to your question on immigration, I think the recent one that she had put out as a budget reply, while the current government has said there should be 235,000 people, Pauline had said we want about 100,000 people to ensure that we are able to be bringing in migrants at a sustainable level and bring them from countries where people would align with the Australian culture and maintain the Aussie values. So I would be very surprised if someone still calls her a racist and talking to me about it. So I'll stop there, Mr. Umesh Chandra.
Well, thank you very much for that clarification. And of course, these are questions that people might have on their minds. So, so moving on, now that that's been cleared, and I think one of the points that have been made about sustainable growth. So, about sustainable growth, I don't think there would be anyone better qualified than yourself coming from that corporate world. It's always good to be ambitious, but you really need to be realistic as well. And I think one of the key things that you touched on there is something which I've been advocating for as well, is coming in and also embracing the Australian the culture and values as well. I mean, that's one of the key reasons why we are here. So moving on, we are in the election mode. So what would be the key policies that you would be focusing on?
I mean, like I said, if I were to be blessed enough to get into the Senate, then one of the areas that I would be looking at how we can reduce red tape, where we can make the opportunity for business. When I say business, I'm not only talking large scale, even the medium and small scale people have to be able to do business in this state. And that will be the main thing that I would focus on, apart from other issues, because I'm told that being in the Senate, you will have to be looking at a lot of laws that goes by and whether you are aligned with it. But my first priority would be to see how we can improve or the ease of doing business in the state of Queensland to the extent that the federal government can influence.
And that too is a key, and that is a key issue. The small to medium businesses as well, because there's always been big focus on big businesses and large corporate enterprises, and many times we've seen that they're both placed in the same basket because they're both business. But you'd probably be well aware that the environment and the atmosphere that small businesses operate in, and the environment that the large corporates operate in is two ends. There's completely different ones. So looking after the small to medium businesses would be a great way to go as well.
Yes, totally agree with you. See, for me, having worked in these large corporations, I've noticed that, depending on those people, the number of medium and small scale businesses that come up. And I'm not talking, when I talk business, I'm not talking just corporates which are in mining or transportation. I'm also talking about small farmers, people who have to be in business, because the farmers are also independent business owners while they get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to either get into maintaining their farm or getting to clean up their cows and other places. They also do a lot of small businesses. You got large farmers, small farmers. So I think it's something that we need to look at. Being in Queensland, when we talk resources, the resources are not just mining. We also have agriculture, and the agri falls into two areas. One is the graziers and the other one is the farmers who produce either wheat, sorghum or vegetables. So we need to, as a country, take care of it, because end of the day, I'm happy to sit in a building which is in the middle of the city, but if I don't get my food, everything is lost. So the fundamental need is food, and we need to take care of them as well. And also the coffee shop people and many people that need the job. And with the mandates and other things that happen, I don't want to go there now, but we need to be able to help people to sustain their living and then grow the living. And that's very important.
And that is very, very important. Just lately, we were at the Q&A session, which is run by Sten Gren. And one of the questions raised there by a very young girl from Nanda was that, moving forward, in today's climate, when there is war and there is, the talk of interest rate going up, and of course we've come through pandemic and all these things. So what are the way of the young people and the future of the youngsters, and how are they going to move forward?
Thank you for that question. It's very important because I've got a teenage girl and I've recently become a grandfather. So I know the importance of youth in this country. I'll start with the Australian value. Majority of us who are here, whether we are born here or we moved in as migrants or refugees or families into this country, the first and foremost thing is we need to take pride in who we are. Yes, I am of Indian origin, but I've been living in Australia as a citizen for the last 30 years. Now, we need to be proud of being an Australian, whether we come from, Greek, Italian background or American background or Indian background, doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, we are here, we all call Australia home. And I always go back to that song, I am, you are, we are Australian. So the first and foremost thing is every Aussie who's living here will have to take pride in being an Australian. That's the first thing that they need to do. Second one, how do you make your country proud? Which means, as a youngster, you need to see what is it that you're going to offer to this country. You need to study better, you need to be able to grow in this country, and you need to do something good for this country. So the youngsters will have to compete against the worlds of the Korea or Japan or India or China or US or Germany. Every country has their own strengths. So we need to make Australia in a place where we should be in a position to say that, hey, I'm in Australia, I'm proud of being an Australian. And to me, that's very important. And then the education system has to be different. where, the maths, I heard people saying that there are not enough maths teachers or we are not doing maths well. Because if you want to get into STEM, maths is very important, science is very important. So I would urge the youngsters in this country to get into a good, work hard, get into education, and that's the only way I see us and the youngsters doing better in this country.
And education is always the key. That is quite a good suggestion there and very good observation. Even though whatever we've come through, there is always good job opportunities here in Australia. Right now, there are many small to medium businesses who are crying out for workers. And they're unable to fill many of the positions. So the opportunities are there in here. Now, the other question that is also on the board, on the table at this point in time, people are talking about housing affordability and, of course, very high rental rates that people are finding it very hard to get rental property. So accommodation in generally, and the real estate as it is going. I would like to get your view on that.
Sure. Before I answer that question, let me go back to your previous question on education and jobs and the need for jobs in small businesses. Many of you know me only as an executive in different big companies like Verizon or Adani or Linfox or whatever. When I came into the country, I'm an engineer by profession, and I've also done my master's in MBA. Of course, I did do in India and then in Australia as well. The point I'm bringing my education is during my first 7 years in this country, people would be surprised when they hear that I was also doing KFC deliveries. I had worked and had my own business. The point in saying that is, there is no job that you should look down upon. Every job is important, whether you are running as a coffee maker or bringing coffee to somebody in the office or sitting as a managing director of a company. Both the jobs are equally important. They have the things. So education helps you to think logically and work differently, but every job is important. And that's one point I wanted to make, Mr. Umesh Chandra. But coming to your affordability, I think I will pull in the immigration thing that we talked earlier, where we said we need to have a sustainable immigration, which also allows us to improve or increase our infrastructure so that when people come in this, we don't have either a huge stock of houses and then there's not many people, or we have too many people coming in and there's not enough stock of housing. And I'm sure you would have seen in the paper yesterday in Sydney, the prices fell big time, and I can't remember the number, but the price go up and down. So it is a point in time discussion for us to see how the housing market is, and also the interest rate going up. I mean, if I'm right, in the last 12 years or 10 years, we never had a big interest rate rise in this country. So we had a great run. But we'll also have to have this sustainable immigration into the country and grow the infrastructure, whether it be road or housing. So, I mean, I'll go a step quite a long way back. Before I got married, my father-in-law came into this country in 89 or 90, and he came back, and I asked him, "Uncle, tell me, what do you think about Australia?" And he said, "Son, Australia is a country flowing with milk and honey." Now, if new people are coming in 2022, 2023, are they going to say the same thing, that this country is flowing with milk and honey? And the only way they will say that is if we welcome them and we also have an infrastructure, housing, and the ability to get a job is all in place, and that has to be in a sustainable level. I think I've made my point more than once, Umeshji. I'll leave it there.
And very well said there as well. And I think the key point there is that Australia is changing, and it has changed. And one of the things that you mentioned, so we've been here since 87, so in a similar time. So we've seen a lot of things, and we share similar views there. Okay, so moving on, I'll go into this sector, which is probably your domain in your previous avatar, energy. Now, looking at the energy sector, I'm just looking at One Nation as a whole, and the policy that's out in the domain is that One Nation supports the investigation of nuclear power, but it strongly opposes subsidy schemes offered to foreign-owned solar and wind projects. So I'd like to get your comment.
Foreign owned, again, I'll go back to the first meeting I had with Pauline Hanson. This was when I was working for, I still don't understand why it was called the most controversial project. I'm talking about the Adani Mining. I think they've changed their name now. Her question was about why they should support a foreign-owned coal mine, and the money is going to go out of the country and things like that. And the challenge was always for me, now I'm sorry people who are listening to me, I'm not an Adani executive, but I'm going to be defending them because I've done that for 5 years, so it's in my nature to defend the project, because I do believe in what I said then, and I will maintain that position. When Adani bought the Abbott Point port, $1 billion it was given, nobody questioned them as to where the money came from. There's a big question when they said they're going to take the money out of the country, and this was a question that was posed by One Nation to me, and I said, as a small business person, we all have an investment that we do, and when the investment is done, there is a payback period, and at the end of the payback period, maybe 5 years or 7 years or whatever the time may be, at the end of that period, the money goes out of the country, or the person who's invested takes the money, and where they take the money out is up to them. So which is very well understood. Now coming back to nuclear and the foreign owned thing, it's important because we always talk about the Darwin port, which is owned by the different country people, and the interesting thing is that it's owned by the government, which is one of the bigger issues that I think One Nation has. It is not individual businessmen who are owning. We don't want a government of a different country through some subsidies owning properties or owning energy in Australia. That's the difference. And nuclear, of course, while we have a different reasons, we are the largest producers. Olympic Dam, I've worked for Linfox in Olympic Dam. I've been there, spent 3 months of my time or more in setting up the transportation for Linfox. We had the contract for 10 years. So we know what we have in this country. There's absolutely no reason why Australia should not be going nuclear. And I think I've answered the question. If I missed something, please do. I'm happy to clarify.
And thank you very much for that clarification once again. And of course, moving on, the other question that is also a big ticket item at this point in time, and especially among the youngsters. And if you even look at, not university level, even in the primary, secondary school level, youngsters these days, kids these days, they are all talking about climate and the climate change. What would be the policy and what are your beliefs on that?
Okay. I'll put my hand up and say, I do not believe in the changes that are being talked about in terms of 1.5 degrees and the net zero commitments that are being put across. Sitting in Australia, I can very honestly say China, which is one of the largest emitters, is going to go for net zero in 2060. And of course, India is going to go in 2070. And I don't know how many people know that 7.8 gigawatts of new coal-fired power plants have started construction in China in 2022. Just for comparison, the whole of Queensland's coal-fired power plants are about 8,000 or 8 gigawatts. So whole of Queensland is being built by China. And we in Australia, again, the carbon dioxide is what we talk about. In the air, it's 0.04% of the air has carbon dioxide, and Australia contributes to 1% of that 0.04. And of that 1%, we are wanting to take 45%, which is what the net zero NZE 2050, which is talked in the World Energy Outlook or the IPCCs. So what is it that we are going to be contributing as Australians to the change when other countries are still polluting 10, 20 years after we have reached, if we reach it, net zero? And that net zero doesn't stop with the industry alone. It goes to the farming side as well. So it's a big debate, and it has been very emotional where we have got kids involved in it. And I do believe that many of the adults my age or people who are younger in their mid-30s or 40s exactly don't understand what this climate change and 1.5 degrees and 2 degrees and the 450 ppm in the air. So a whole lot of things, Mr. Umesh Chandra, that we need to talk about. Happy to go in depth into that and explain to people why we should not be spending a lot of time and energy, and people will be losing a lot of jobs.
And maybe that could be one of the follow-up sessions which we can do, probably going a little bit deeper into that area. And I think because one of the things that you just mentioned there about facts and figures, that many people just pick up, they hear something and off they go, start protesting. They don't know the facts and figures. They don't know actually what is that point and what is the degree of thing. But they have to protest, and that's it. Many times they don't even know what they're protesting against. So getting the facts and figures is very... Of course, we understand the concerns that some of our youngsters have, that what would the future generation and what kind of environment would we be living for them. Those things are understandable, but of course you need to look at the right direction, as you have just mentioned. So once again, thank you so much for being on the show, and maybe because there are some topics of very common interest here, and which will be interest of our listeners and viewers as well. Maybe we can do another live session where we can invite some questions as well. That would be wonderful. But congratulations on your selection as number 2 on the ticket, and your being there probably would change the perception of the party among the people. So if we just went out and said One Nation is doing this, people might not believe, but you are now a living proof, and you have just said there. So once again, thank you so much for being on the show. Is there anything you'd like to say to our viewers and listeners in conclusion?
No, there's this one thing that I would like to tell the viewers in terms of the election, because we are talking about elections. Please look and think carefully about how you do the preference, because many people in the last 2-3 weeks when I've traveled into the regional Queensland, not that I've not done before, but as wearing the One Nation hat, many people have not understood the importance of preference. The preference system that we have in Australia is good, and it is no political party that is going to give its preference to anyone. It is you as a voter who's got every right to choose who you want to choose. You may say when you're going into voting, you get a card which it's only a recommendation or a suggestion. So please spend some time, understand how the preference system works for both the lower house and for the Senate, and vote accordingly, because it is your choice. You own your vote. While there could be so many news articles and papers saying that so-and-so gave their preference to them, all that is at a very high level. Please spend your time and understand preference is your vote counts. And I will stop there. And again, Mr. Rumesh Chandra, thank you once again for the Brisbane India Times to give me the opportunity to come and talk openly and freely, and appreciate your time as well in asking me the questions. And once again, if you're opening the door to have a more serious debate on climate change or net zero, happy to come in and have a chat. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you are. As you have heard from Raj Guruswamy himself, that he's happy to come in and do a follow-up. So, I'd like to get your feedback and see, whether it would be of interest of everyone, and we will do that again. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you so much for joining in. Remember, this has been an exclusive interview arranged by Australian Indian Radio right here. Thank you very much. Until our next show in the Community Connection section, it's goodbye from us.